Hello, Honors 202. I hope everybody's well today. I'm coming to you live from my basement, which is a wonderful place to be, I guess. It's where I spend a bunch of my time. Look, if you see over here, I got little tiny me. Uh, Here I am. I thought I'd keep little tiny me over here, and that might be fun for everyone. Just gonna try to stop him from moving, but I can't really. Um, I hope everybody's doing good. I hope you're staying safe. Remember to do the stuff that you can to stay safe, with wearing your mask and social distancing and wash your hands and all that stuff, because we want you to stay well so that we can keep school in session and so that you can come to class and so that we can all learn tons, in this case, about medieval and Renaissance thought. So, people, a couple of things I want to mention here, and then I'm going to talk about Monty Python's Holy Grail for a few minutes, and then I will plan on seeing you all in person on Wednesday. Remember that you can make comments on this video to earn participation points. And what else here? Okay, a couple other things I wanted to mention. One, your first reflection is due on Friday. That's just a one-page reflection, double spaced. It's not even that much. But I want it to be relatively well written, though it's not a formal paper. You can certainly use I in it. I want to hear your thoughts, your opinions, your ideas. So, that first one's going to be due on Friday. You're going to turn that in through Canvas, and that should all be cool. If you have questions about that when you are working on it, you let me know, and I will do my best to help you out. A couple other things I wanted to mention. The student videos that you're going to need to do with a partner. I figured out a way. Oh, figured out a way. I've changed the plan a little bit so that those first student videos won't come for quite a bit now. I'm going to wait. Right now, they were supposed to start in like 2 weeks or something, but I'm going to push it back so that they won't start for like 5 weeks or even more. And then you'll be getting more than one a week, but that's not going to be a big deal. So student video projects. You need to be sure that you're thinking about that. You need to find yourself a partner, and you and your partner need to get into the book and find the text that you want to read, and do your video on. In a few days, maybe this week, if not next week. If you have not found a partner in the class, do not have a partner, I'll ask you to send me your names and I will randomly hook people up together. Okay? So everyone will end up with a partner some way or another. So be thinking about that. Be thinking about your reflection due. Next week is our first reading assignment from the book. We're reading Marie de France, which is probably not a very good pronunciation of her name. Probably more like Marie de France or something like that. We're reading that for next week. Those are two very short stories in our book. One's called Landville, the other's called Lostic. We'll read both of those, and I'll make a video about those next Monday, and we'll repeat what we're doing this week with those texts next week. Hope everybody's cool with that. Hope that all makes sense. If you got questions or whatever, as always, please drop me a line and let me know what's up, and I'll do my best to help you out. So let's talk. I asked y'all to read I asked y'all to watch Monty Python's Search for the Holy Grail. Which is obviously a somewhat absurd movie set in the Middle Ages around the idea of King Arthur's court and etc., which most of us are relatively familiar with, just as an idea, the Round Table and Sir Lancelot and all of that. When I was a kid, my parents didn't want us to have pets, but we did have a snake whose name was Sir Adrian. It was a garter snake. Sir Adrian we had for a really long time. And then for a while we also had a shorter snake, Sir Lancelot. But Sir Lancelot died a horrible death. We won't get into that right now. Nobody was happy about it, though. Okay. So I had you watch Monty Python. Again, set in the time period that most of us already have some ideas about. So, there are a lot of things in this movie. I mean, first and foremost, I want to say it's funny. It might not be your kind of humor, because it's a certain kind of humor, but it's funny, and it's got some really funny moments in it. And there are a number of those that we could point out to talk about, but I want to talk about it in a sort of more general way because I want to give you ideas to generate so that you have things to talk about on Wednesday and that you have things to write about for your reflection on Friday. So here's some stuff that I thought about when I was watching the movie that I would like you to maybe think about too. Excuse me, people. So, let's just say, similar to how we went to the art museum, that we didn't know about medieval times at all, and this movie was the only thing that we had to go off of to figure out what it was like in medieval times. And we have no evidence except for this movie. And so someone says, what can we learn about medieval times from this movie? And obviously this movie is our view of medieval times now. But again, if you didn't know what was going on, what would you think medieval times were like if you watched this movie? So, for instance, think of the big subjects and what this movie has to say about them, right? And by big subjects, I mean things like, these are just some words that I wrote down, like, what does this movie teach us about kings, about knights, about peasants, about God or religion, about heroism, about science, about work, about women, about enemies or foes or war or combat. What would we learn about those things if we were watching this movie? Like, so for instance, I'll just share some of the things that I think, right? Like, so I think one of the first things that we would learn about kings is that they're stupid. They're super silly. They go around pretending to be king. Well, meanwhile, they really don't rule anything. Most people don't even know that they have a king, let alone the king doesn't have any real influence on their lives. And how did he get to be king? Well, someone gave him a sword. Or as somebody says in the movie, some watery tot threw a sword at him. And so I think that one of the first things I would think about kings is that they're ridiculous. I'm also thinking of the other king in the movie who built his castle on a swamp. And it sunk, and he built his castle on a swamp, and it sunk, and then they did it again, and that one burned down and sunk. But then the fourth castle stayed, and he's got that son and that wedding and all of that stuff. Oh my God, this light sort of, oh my God, it's blinking. Hopefully that won't continue to be an issue, but if it does, it'll make it more exciting, perhaps like a disco. So, for instance, if I were learning about knights in this, I would think, likewise, knights are silly. Again, they ride around pretending to be on horses. They go on, they fight stupid battles, do stupid stuff like, well, like showing up at a wedding reception and killing everyone. That's the knight's idea of saving someone or doing something noble. They are ridiculous and destructive and dangerous too, right? I mean, they got their swords. That's another thing I think about in the movie. One of the things that I like in the movie is how the real world, or sort of our time, comes in. The sort of breaking of the, I think in theater they call this the third wall, but that we see a couple of times that this is definitely a movie being made. because they'll even turn to the camera and say, "Hey, we're making a movie." Or in this case, think of the historian, the famous historian, and then the knight runs by and cuts his throat, and he dies, and the woman screams, and then at the end of the movie, the police arrest everybody. One of the things that I think we can learn about knights and kings is that they were engaged in criminal behavior by our standards. I mean, by our standards, if you put on armor and go around and just start looking for fights, that's criminal behavior most of the time. So, at any rate, what could we learn about kings and knights or peasants? For instance, in this, I would learn that one, peasants have a horrible life. They literally roll around in filth and shit and all kinds of stuff. They spend time beating cats against the wall and collecting filth. But meanwhile, they're super smart. It seems to be, at least a number of them have really advanced views of economics and how government should work. Much, much smarter than the knights and the kings around them. Though again, clearly living in absolute squalor and awful conditions. What does this movie have to say about God and religion? There's the holy hand grenade. Oh, what does that say? There's the idea that God is up in the sky and the clouds part, and then God is up there. But he's just a cartoon character, and he doesn't really want your worship or anything like that. He's kind of a goofball. He wants you to go looking for this grail. Why? Why the grail? Why does it matter? Nobody really knows. So we might say, oh my God, in this movie, one of the things we could learn is God is kind of like a cartoon character. Or that in religion we see the monks hitting their heads with the tablets. Like, what is religion? Maybe it's hurt. Maybe it's hitting yourself with something. I mean, I don't know. What could we learn about heroism? Like, all of these people think that they're heroes to some degree or another, and if so, what would we think being a hero means? Science. I'm thinking of Sir Bedivere, who is obviously the scientific mind, and of course, when we first meet him, he's weighing the witch and the duck. That's his idea of science. And later on, he continues to have nothing but very stupid ideas, which is, mostly how we look at science in medieval times, right? I mean, they're like, I don't know what they're doing. They're like letting blood for diseases, right? Like cutting you and letting you bleed out, or what? They have all kinds of crazy ideas about what's scientific, about what works, about what's medicine. So maybe, though, that's not much different than how people see science today. Often wrong, presented by somebody sort of acting smart. I don't know. So what can it teach us about that? Again, what could it teach us about war or combat? Well, again, I mean, one, we would find out that combat is absolutely brutal when you think about the fight between the Black Knight and Sir Arthur trying to get across the bridge. Well, that's another thing. What are they fighting over? To get across a bridge. Why? And is that worth dying over? Well, apparently for the Black Knight it is. And so again, what would we think about their quote-unquote enemies, their foes, right? Like the French that are in the castle, or again, what was I just saying? The French that are in the castle, the other folk, like the Black Knight, or like the knights who say knee, or the three-headed knight, or three-headed guy in the forest, or the monster who's just a bunny. What does that say to us about evil and about who they're fighting, and what are they fighting for, and why are they fighting? What does this movie say is about women? Obviously, there's a bunch of stuff in here about women. I'm thinking in particular, though, the Castle Anthrax, full of women from the ages of 16 to 19 and a half, who are very clearly nothing but sex-obsessed seductresses that are out to sort of ruin poor Sir Galahad, all right? They're going to ruin his chastity and etc. They are sex-obsessed. That's one thing we could learn. I suppose we could also learn in that case that they're very beautiful and what, that they live all by themselves in the castle? I don't know. Maybe we would learn that as well. Other example of women in the movie are all over the place. So think about what the movie says about women. Likewise, maybe what it says about work, what it says about medieval times in general. Again, this movie's how we see medieval times. So thus, how do we see them? I would say by and large, we see them as stupid. We see them as uneducated and backward, and we're so glad that we're not in them anymore. So there are a lot of things I think that we could get from this movie, we could talk about with this movie. These are just some ideas for you to think about, for class on Wednesday to talk about, and for your reflection on Friday. When you come to class on Wednesday, again, I'm going to ask you to bring a piece of paper with a paragraph or two to turn in for quiz points. If you're going to be absent, did I mention this earlier, that people who are absent are required, if you're not going to make it to class on Wednesday, you're going to have to make a comment on the video. But also, two absences. If you're absent on Wednesday, you're missing quiz points. When you get back, when you are no longer sick, when all that happens, you come talk to me, and I will, depending on how many quizzes you've missed, I will give you some type of an assignment that is an equivalent, let's say, to that point value, so that we'll give you a chance to earn those quiz points if you can't make it to class. Otherwise, if you can make it to class on Wednesday, come there, have your half sheet of paper with ideas that you got from watching Monty Python's Search for the Holy Grail. I think that's really all I've got right now. Again, think of the movie as a thing that we can learn from. And if we were learning from it, what would we learn about the time period and about all the subjects that it addresses? I think that's all I've got for you now, people. Man, I hope you have a great day. I hope you've just enjoyed this video so much that you're like, man, I'm going to watch this like 10 times because it's so good. I will try to keep the videos under 20 minutes, as this one will be, but some will even be shorter than this. It seemed like to me there was some stuff that we needed to talk about today. Hope everybody's well. I will see you on Wednesday. Bye-bye.